I've mentioned before that I grew up in a small town in northwest Iowa, and that I went to school in a consolidated school district in a building not in one town but in the middle of a cornfield. The building was about 20 years old by the time I went to kindergarten, and as far as my classmates and I were concerned, this was school. Students from 4 towns and all the countryside in between gathered in one building for school. But as I grew older, I learned that the big building out in the middle of the country was an innovation, and there were still hard feelings among many local residents about that school's presence, and in particular, the school's address. Before the big building in the middle of the country was built in the mid-60s, 3 of the 4 towns that came together had their own schools in their own towns. So Larchwood, my hometown, had its school, and Leicester had its school, and Inwood had its school. Alvord wasn't big enough to have a school. It was kind of like Edmond, but not quite so crowded, so it didn't have a school. The 4 towns shared the use of these buildings for a while, but then they decided to build one new building together. To be fair, they decided not to build the building in one town, but they would build it out in the middle of the country. And to be extremely fair, they decided to build the new school right on the highway that divided the Inwood zip code from the Larchwood zip code. So on one side of the highway is 51240 Inwood, and on the other side is 51241 Larchwood. Everyone agreed this sounded fair. This might work. This could be a good thing. But then the next question was, but what side of the road will the school actually be on? Will it be on the Larchwood side or on the Inwood side? You can't build the school right in the middle of the highway. It has to be on one or the other. One town is going to own that school, so which one is it going to be? Well, after much weeping and gnashing of teeth, the school board decided that the best land available, the best deal, was in fact on the Larchwood side of the highway, and the Larchwoodians were ecstatic. Those highbrow Inwoodites had been lording it over us for years. Quite the superiority complex they had 10 miles to the south of us. They finally got what was coming to them, and the Inwoodites were furious. They had lost the school. They had lost their identity, and to Larchwood, to those beer-swilling, baseball-playing bandits up there. Something had to be done, and fast. So in the middle of the night, these things always happen in the middle of the night. In the middle of the night, the members of the school board from Inwood met with their town council and the postmaster, and who knows what they did. They probably called the postmaster general himself, and they stretched the Inwood zip code so that it included the school. So even though all the farms on this side of the highway had the Larchwood address 51241, the school, for some reason, now had the address 51240. And they didn't tell anybody about it. And nobody knew. They kept it a secret until the letterhead came out with the new schools. Had the picture on the top, and then there was the address, and it said 51240. And the Larchwoodites said, well, that's wrong, because this should be a Larchwood address. And then they heard the story, and then they were really mad. And there was nothing they could do. And to add insult to injury, whenever the West Line Wildcats sports teams make it to state, when the Larchwoodians see their native sons and daughters on the TV playing football or basketball, they hear them playing on the radio, playing baseball, or in the wrestling matches, the announcers always announce the school as Inwood West Lion. Oh, it's awful. The rage simmers to this day. Well, small towns often have these rivalries. Of course, Mineral Point and Dodgeville have no stories like this, which is a relief. But it helps to try to imagine this sort of environment as we read the rest of the story of Jesus in his hometown of Nazareth. To understand this story, we need to remember that we, like our tribes, we group ourselves and we draw boundaries around ourselves like zip codes, and those boundaries matter to us more than we might think. Well, Jesus has been at the Jordan River near Jerusalem, that's south of Nazareth, for his baptism. And then the Spirit sends him off into the wilderness, and he's there for 40 days being tempted by Satan. And when he's through, his ministry begins, and he heads back up north to Galilee, where Nazareth is. And he goes around the synagogues in Galilee, to the synagogues, all the synagogues. He goes to Cana, Sepphoris, Magdala, Tiberias, and Capernaum. And he teaches. Now, Nazareth is on the south side. It would make sense for Jesus to go to Nazareth first before going to the others, but he goes to all the others. And he teaches, and his reputation precedes him, and he's doing wonders, and people are marveling at him. And then, finally, he goes back to Nazareth. And he walks into the synagogue on the Sabbath day, and he shakes hands with the people that he's known for all of his life who watched him as he was growing up. And Jim says, "Good to see you, Jesus. I was just thinking the other day about that time when you were 10 and you knocked over my food stand, and I was so mad at you." And then Gene says to him, "Good to see you, Jesus. You knew I always thought you would be doing big things, and it's good to have you back, and I'm glad you're here." And then Jane says to him, "Jesus, what took you so long? You'd been gone so long, I thought maybe you'd forgotten about us. Been all over, even to Capernaum, I hear. But now you're home where you belong. Maybe you'll stick around long enough for you to remember who you are." Jesus stands up and reads from Isaiah, tells the people that he'll be working for justice for the poor, bringing God's grace and second chances, and he tells people that he is the anointed one, he's the Messiah, and all speak well of him and are amazed at his gracious words. Now, Luke's story is different than Matthew's story here. In Matthew, the people of Nazareth take offense at him immediately. But in Luke, his words are gracious and great. They're fine with him being the Messiah. "Did you hear that, dear? He says he's the Messiah. Isn't that great news? What good news for Nazareth. This is wonderful. This is going well for Jesus. He could stop right there and go down to the potluck and stuff himself full and press the flesh for a few days and then be on his way." But he doesn't stop there. He provokes them. He finds their little tribal button and he pushes it hard. He starts in on them. "Doubtless you will quote to me this proverb, 'Doctor, cure yourself.' And you will say, 'Do here also in your hometown the things that we heard you did at Capernaum.'" You see, Capernaum was on the edge of Gentile territory. Gentile simply means not us. If you're a Gentile, you're not us. So on one side of Capernaum, the zip code is Jewish, and on the other side, the zip code is Gentile. If Jesus is spending too much time up there, he's likely mixing and even talking and teaching foreigners. Show us that we're the important ones by doing the wonders you did for those foreigners up there, by being back here with the people that you raised, the people like you, like us. Jesus says, "Truly, I tell you, no prophet's accepted in his hometown." And then he lashes out. The truth is, there were many widows in Israel in the time of Elijah, when the heaven was shut up 3 years and 6 months, and there was a severe famine over all the land, and yet Elijah was sent to none of them except a widow at Zarephath in Sidon. Sidon is Gentile territory. This meant Elijah was sent to a Gentile's house. And Jesus keeps at him. There were also many lepers in Israel in the time of the prophet Elisha, and none of them was cleansed except Naaman the Syrian. Syria is Gentile territory too. What Jesus has told his hometown crowd, in a not-so-nice way, is that as Messiah, Jesus is going to be going to the Gentiles too, to the people that they love to hate. Jesus has just attacked their tribalism. We're in Nazareth. The Messiah is from Nazareth. We must be the best. And he's also attacked their nationalism. It's Jew versus Gentile. There's nothing good about being a dirty, rotten Gentile. But Jesus is going to the Gentiles. And the people in that synagogue are immediately enraged. Just a little bit ago, they were singing his praises, and now they haul him out to the edge of a cliff to throw him off and kill him. But Jesus finds his way through them and goes about in his way because he's Jesus. And where does he go next? Capernaum. Back up to the border.